Today I got something a little bit different, but I think it's something that pretty much anybody that lives in a colder climate will appreciate. These things are pretty easy to work on, whether it's a Master or, I think Remington's name's on them, Reddy. They're pretty much all made by Desa, D-E-S-A. Pretty much all the parts are interchangeable on them. Really only a few things that go wrong with these things. If you've got power, you've got good fuel. This thermostat, if yours has the thermostat on it, you want to make sure you've got a good filter in here. You're getting good pressure here. And one of the only tools that you'll need to work on these things is a little pressure or vacuum gauge. In this case, it's pressure. But other than that, all you really need is a wrench or a socket to get the bolts off of this, to get these out, a flat screwdriver. And even if you don't have one of those gauges, I'll show you how to get this thing adjusted pretty close to where it needs to be to function the way it's supposed to. This one is pretty obvious what's wrong with it. This plastic housing has been cracked here. And I do have another one here, and that comes with a kit to replace it. That comes with the two plugs that you see here. There's a spring and a ball that goes in one of these holes. I'll start tearing this thing apart here, and I'll show you guys how to troubleshoot these things and get them working the way they're supposed to. So you can probably see a little bit better here. That's cracked out right there. That's this cover here. So that should be one continuous piece all the way around there. Now when you take this off, there is a secondary filter here, and this has a cork gasket in it, so you got to be careful with that. If it's not already damaged, make sure you don't damage it. Usually it'll be stuck to this cover. But that looks pretty good. I think we can reuse that one. It's tore a little bit there. That's going to be outside of where it needs to seal. I don't think I need to pull this off to fix this heater, but I will pull it off here just to show you guys what's under there. But what you want to do is make sure this is clean. Brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner works real well for cleaning that up. There is no gasket on this one. It seals directly against metal to metal. Make sure this isn't gummed up, and you don't want to put any kind of oil in here because it will cause these little veins to stick. But the way this thing works, as this spins around, these little veins fly in and out. As you spin this heater, those should fall. I mean, gravity should be enough to pull them down there. If they're sticking, that can be a problem too. You can take them out, like I said, clean these with brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner. But that's working very well. And what these are, just a little vein, and it pulls air in over here, and as it comes around, it compresses that air and creates pressure, so it works like a pump. Very simple pump. It's an offset cylinder. Anyway, I don't think we need to do anything in there, but like I said, you can clean these up. These just come out like that, and there is one edge that'll be a little rounded. That's the edge that runs around the outside, so the rounded edge goes towards this outside, and the flat edge goes back up in the pump part itself. So there's 4 of these in this one. I think most of them have 4. Make sure this is clean, and then you can put that right back on. The other thing you want to look for here is make sure there's no cracks in this hose or this plastic piece, and it's not split. The other thing you want to check is these hoses down in there. Make sure that they haven't come loose or cracked. There's an igniter right here. This one has like a glow plug style igniter on it. Some of them actually have a literal spark plug in them that sparks all the time. This one just does it with a glow plug. Works kind of like a glow plug in a diesel truck. There's also a photo cell right here that senses when there's light in there. So if the flame goes out and it doesn't see light, it shuts this thing down. So you want to make sure that's working. So if you're getting this thing to fire up, it's lighting, you got fuel in it, and it runs for a few seconds, and then it goes out, you might want to check this photo cell right here. Make sure your motor is spinning really well. Make sure there's no mice got down in here and chewed up any of these wires or anything. I'm not going to go too much into that because I'm pretty sure the only thing wrong with this one is this cracked cover here. But that gives you the basics of these things. If you've never had the hood off of one of them, you can kind of see what I'm looking at there. This plastic cover with the check ball and the screws, this was $10, so it's pretty reasonable. That includes the 2 little parts. It did not include the filter. I would recommend replacing this if you've got one that's really dirty or this cork material is damaged. This is the broken cover that I just took off. But you can see right here, that's that check ball. And what that is, that's how you adjust your pressure. So when you turn this screw in it tightens that ball up, pushes it harder against the plastic, takes more pressure to open it up. So when you adjust the pressure on this, all you're doing is relieving or increasing the pressure on that check ball, and that's what's going to create your pressure point, because once that ball opens, that's as much pressure as it'll get. So you can set that to where that ball opens at, in this case, 4.7 psi, and that keeps your pressure right where it needs to be to pump the fuel properly. All right, there's only one adjustment screw on this, and that's the one that has the hole all the way through it. This one here is solid, and this is nothing more than a plug that you take out when you screw your gauge into this to set the pressure. So this one here is not an adjustment screw, it's literally just a plug. Even though I've got the gauge, I'll go ahead and put this plug in here, and I'll show you how I set this pressure without a gauge. And then we'll put the gauge on it and we'll check it and see how close I am. Probably won't be perfect, but it'll get it close enough that it'll fire and it'll run efficiently. Semi-efficiently anyway. All right, so what you want to do, drop this little ball down in there. I'm going to put the spring in here to make sure it gets down in this piece. And then drop it in there. All right, and then usually what I'll do is tighten this plug down so it's snug. And then this one here, I'll just turn it in till it's slightly below the lip of that. The pressure will be too low when I put it in, and I know that. You can kind of look at this one and see how much lower it is down in there. Gives you a good gauge where you can start at. I'm going to start a little bit low, and then I'll turn it in to adjust the pressure up as we put it back together. Now on this here, if you go ahead and drop your bolts down in these holes, that'll give you something for this cork piece to hold on to. Just hold those in place. And then you can put this on over the top of it. Like that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to screw it in through the cork so I don't push it through there and break something or tear that cork. And then you can just put this back on there. I'm really not worried about that little piece there. It's outside of it. You don't want to tighten these down to where you squish that cork out. About as tight as you can get them with a couple fingers is really all you need to do. You can always come back and tighten these down a little more if you've got an air leak. All right, we'll drop that down in there. If we plug this thing in now, you gotta be real careful if you plug this in so the fan doesn't get you. Turn your temperature control all the way up so you know it's gonna come on. And these heaters that have this glow plug, there is a little bit of delay. So when you plug it in, you're gonna think it's not working right away. But give it a minute for this glow plug to heat up, and then it should build some pressure. And if you look right down through here, you should be able to see it squirting a little bit of fuel in there. And it may even fire up even though the pressure is kind of low. Try to get this camera set up here where you guys can see that down in there. You'll see it start glowing first, and then you should see fuel spraying right out of that. I'll put a flashlight on it right as I plug it in. All right, so you saw even though the pressure is probably low, got dirt in there. You can see the smoke coming out of it. A lot of smoke. Maybe I should have looked to see if there was a mouse nest in there. Anyway, we'll check our pressure. I'll open a door here before it gets too smoky in here. All right, I didn't find any kind of mouse nest or anything in there, or dirt dauber nest or anything. I think it's just dirty and dusty, but I did take compressed air and blow that out real well, so that should get rid of the smoke in here. Go ahead and put the filter back in here. And guys, this is actually just a lawnmower filter. This thing didn't have a filter in it when I got it, so I cut up a, it's just a lawnmower filter that I cut up to put in here, so there's something in there to filter it. This filter is usually a black filter. You can get these pretty cheap, but that works for now. What I'll do, pretty sure our pressure's low. You can tell by the sound, and I don't know how well this is going to work on camera doing this by ear for you guys on how you're trying to listen to it. If you turn this too much pressure, you're going to start seeing black smoke. It won't be a lot, but you'll see a little bit of black smoke in your fumes. You'll notice the fumes really bad. If you notice that, you've probably got your pressure too high. If the flame on the front, when you're looking at the front of this thing, it should be good and orange, should be turning that metal plate on the front good and orange. If that doesn't look really hot, you want the outside edge. You don't want it like red hot glowing, but you want it to where it's hot. So I know we're low right now. I'll go ahead and turn this thing on. I'll turn it on here. And then I'll adjust this to where it sounds like it's good. And then I'll pull this plug out, put a gauge on it, and see where it's at. I don't know how close we'll be, but I think I'll be within a half a pound or so, if not closer. 4.7 is our goal. There will be a little bit of a delay for that glow plug to heat up. Should start right up. A little bit of flamage there. You can see, I don't know if you can see, the flames are kind of coming on and off. That's a sign that you do not have enough pressure. I think we're just smoking because it's not burning efficiently. So I'm going to turn this in quite a bit. It's 1 turn, 1.5, 2 turns, 2.5, and I'll see where I'm at there. We get this set up right, it shouldn't smoke anymore. Watching the flame in there to make sure it's a good consistent flame. Now we should have a good orange glow on the front of this thing. Still heating up, but it's getting there. That's probably close enough to run it right there. And you can see we got rid of the smoking also. All right, I'll go ahead and shut it off here. I'm gonna take this plug out. We'll put our pressure gauge on it and see where we're at. I'm guessing we're still slightly low. Ideally, they should come with a gauge on them, but that would add another 20 bucks or so to it, I guess. And I think these gauges, they're not that expensive. They're 15, 20 bucks on Amazon or eBay. I'll put a link down below the video to it. It's been a while since I bought one, but they're not terribly expensive. This one is liquid filled. It kind of gives it more consistency, and I'll flip that over there so the bubble's at the top. All right, 4.7, so 3, 4, 5. We should be just under that mark right there. Let the glow plug heat up. So I'm a little bit low. Should be up here closer to the 5. I usually just go like a quarter turn at a time. That's probably right on the money right there. If we look at the front of this thing too, it'll probably be glowing a little bit more orange now. That's going to put more heat into it because we're putting more fuel into it. So you can see how that looks nice and orange. Putting out some good heat now. So look at the front of your heater there too. That's going to give you a good indication if you don't have a gauge. If that thing's nice and glowing orange, not red hot, but glowing orange, that's really what you want. I think we're right on the money right there. All right, I know that's way too loud, so we'll turn it off. Once you get that set, you can just unscrew your gauge and then just put your plug back in here. And when you put this back together, put your back plate here on first, or you can't get this in once you get the top plate on. You also want to make sure this is all the way over on both sides here, you know, because that will come up out of there and then your cover's not going to fit right. Get that in place and then set your cover back on, bolt it back on, and that's all there is to these things, man. These things are really simple to work on. All right, just for the heck of it, we'll turn it back on now that we got the cover on. Still smoking quite a bit. And I'll tell you something else, guys. I did not dump the fuel out of this thing. I don't know how old this fuel is in here because that's fuel it came with, and it's probably about half full. So could be old fuel is why it's smoking so bad. I just want to give you a little bit of insight on these if you're considering one of these for a shop or a small 1 or 2 car garage. Even with good clean fuel in this thing, you're still going to smell it. If your garage or your shop is attached to your house, you're going to smell it inside too, especially if you're in and out of the door. What I consider these good for is getting your shop up to temperature so that you can get the heat going. If it's 0 degrees out in your shop and you want to get it up so you can get to work here in 20-30 minutes, that's the way to go. For a small 2-car, 3-car garage, like I said earlier, 35,000 to 55,000. The one I used to use was a 55,000, and it was on a thermostat, and it kicked off and on about every 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how cold it was. Guys, I have used almost every option you can imagine to try to heat a shop. At one point, I even had a wood-burning stove, which I don't recommend in a garage. I got rid of that. Takes a while to get it heated up, and if you're going to be using it in any kind of area where you've got lawnmowers and fuel, I don't recommend it. I've also got a 5,000 watt electric heater. That's 220, so you do have to have 220 to run that out here. These come up to, I think, 7,500 watt. I believe that came from Tractor Supply or Rural King. And guys, if you've got the budget to do it, this is the way to go right here. That's air conditioned and heat. It's an inverter heat pump. This is an 18,000 BTU. It's probably a little bit overkill for this. You could probably get away with a 12,000. As long as you're, running it efficiently, it would take a little bit longer to heat it or cool it. That's good down to about 25 to 30 degrees by itself. And then I use that as supplemental heat. I currently do not use any kind of kerosene or diesel heater just because, for one, they're extremely loud. If you're ever trying to listen to the radio or TV, or especially like I'm doing making video, you just cannot use a heater like this. Hopefully that'll help you out if you've got a problem with yours, give you some kind of insight on what to look for on it and how to troubleshoot it. If you've got any questions or comments, leave me some comments down below. I'll try to answer them as best I can. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Till next time.